So that can...
Time out.
Yeah,
This dog
I know,
cannot
it's way
stop.
distracting.
Stop. Stop. No. And quit looking cute while you do that.
Hi guys! We have a very fun video for you today. We're going to talk about pets on a budget, a little roadblock that we ran into this past week, as well as give you an update on our first month of this new budget adventure. So first up is the dogs, which you can probably hear in the background. Ready? Cheers!
Cheers! All right, so as you guys know, we have 2 dogs ourselves, and I think a lot of people that we know that we're friends with, our family members, a lot of people have pets of some sort, whether they be dogs or cats or lizards or whatever they might be. So we're going to talk a little bit about how we're managing to keep our dogs on a budget.
So pets in general, and at least for us, dogs in particular, are often expensive and unpredictable. So if you are starting a budget, a stricter budget, now is not the time to get a pet if you don't have one already.
If you do take a look at your budget and you decide that it is the right time for you to get an animal, we always like to say that you should adopt, not shop. Go find a reputable rescue or animal shelter and adopt an animal rather than going to a breeder or somebody like that is going to sell you an animal. You're actually rewarding the breeder for bringing more animals in, and quite frankly, we have too many animals as it is. You're actually paying more for a dog that a lot of times they're predisposed to more health issues. Definitely adopt, do not shop.
On the other hand, if you do have a pet already and you're trying to stay on a strict budget, save some money, that is not a good reason to give up your pet.
The thing you have to understand is that it's not the animal's fault, okay? This is something that you did to get yourself in this position, and by getting rid of your animal, you're taking it out on them. Their quality of life drastically decreases when they're changing from home to home, and so that's something that you really need to keep in mind. If you're the type of person who decides to rehome animals frequently, you really need to reevaluate getting an animal in the first place.
Once you adopt a pet, that's your responsibility, and you should treat it as a member of your family and not throw them out to the curb again. All right, so once you have your dog and it is here to stay, we have some tips for helping you stay on your budget while taking care of your pet. The 4 main expenses that we could think of for our dogs are food, treats and toys, vet, and boarding.
So food is very important to our dogs. Like every animal, they have to eat to survive.
Yeah.
So for our dogs in particular, Nellie especially has some dietary restrictions because of some allergies that she has. Currently, we're feeding her a food called the Honest Kitchen whole grain chicken. It's a little bit more expensive than your typical dog food, but it has limited ingredients and she actually absolutely loves it. And it's really helped with her skin issues. So there are other options out there, but that's the cheapest option that we've found that has worked for her. As for Jenny, she was recently diagnosed with CDA, which is color dilution alopecia. That is pretty common for Doberman that are not black in color. Basically what it is she gets really dry skin, and so all we have to do is medicate her for that, and then her food is pretty good. Doberman are susceptible to DCM, which is a heart condition if they have too many ingredients that are found in grain-free foods. So for Jenny's alopecia and her DCM, we basically just have to avoid some of the foods that would cause her some issues. And so for DCM, we look out for peas, lentils, and potatoes. Those are the things that we make sure are not in her food. But other than that, she's pretty much good to go. So for her, we have a lot more options than we do for Nellie. Keep shopping around, and we actually will change her food if it gets a little bit too expensive, because every now and then the price changes. So you got to keep an eye on that for your pets as well.
We also like to use Chewy for our food and for other things. That's a way to keep the cost down, because typically if you set up a recurring order, you get a certain percentage off.
We actually get their medication from Chewy as well. It just so happens that they also have the cheapest medication that we found that our dogs need. Definitely take a look. There are a lot of different suppliers out there, so you just have to find out the best one for you. But we would really recommend Chewy.com.
So the next category is treats and toys. As far as toys goes, our dogs are pretty hard on toys, so we try to find things that are durable but also a good value. We've started to use BarkBox, which do send pretty great toys. The dogs love them. They're very entertaining.
We like them.
Yeah, they're very creative.
They're interesting for us.
But they still don't last terribly long, but it gives the dogs something to do. If our dogs aren't entertained, especially Nellie, she can start getting into things that she's not supposed to have, things that would need to be replaced, things that are unhealthy for her. And so that can also mean more money down the line too. Something like chews or bones that will keep them entertained for a longer period of time works great too. We've also gotten creative with making toys. Ginny loves to chew on water bottles as long as we take them away in time, or just making toys out of some old shirts or something that we have around the house.
A cost-effective treat idea would be to give your dog some ice cubes. We like to call them ice cookies. The dogs really enjoy them, and there's no guilt involved because we know that they're not going to get fat off of eating too many ice cookies. Some other entertainment options for your dog would be to teach them how to play bananagrams. Or you could have them pick out a movie that you can watch together. Or you could teach them how to cook. Our favorite thing to cook is eggs.
So another expense that we generally have with our dogs are vet expenses. And this one always kind of feels like it sneaks up on you because sometimes you don't really exactly know how much things cost until you've already committed to paying for them. But this is one thing that you definitely need to be ready for because your animal is going to need to go to the vet at some point. Things like vaccines. You're also going to have to pay for things like exam fees and visit fees. To help offset some of the veterinary costs, you could take a look at some pet insurance plans. We've also in the past have tried some prepay plans where depending on your vet, they might have a plan that you pay a fee at the beginning of the year and you get all of your
wellness exams, vaccines.
Yeah, you get all of your whole pet's health is kind of comprehensive in that plan. So that's something to keep in mind. And the last thing when it comes to vets is that you need to be cognizant of emergency room visits because those are going to be multiple times more than you would pay to just see a regular during the day vet. Why don't you give your vet a call just to make sure? If they tell you to bring it in, then obviously do so, but it might not always be the case that you need to go see an emergency vet. With Nellie, for instance, she actually had a cut on her ear after the two dogs got into a scuffle, and we took her pretty much immediately to the emergency vet, and about $600 later, we got our dog back, and she hated us for taking her. And it wouldn't have been really any different if we just waited until morning. I just say pump the brakes a little bit, all right? You'll have a pretty good idea of what's really, truly emergency room worthy and what isn't.
It's always better to be safe than sorry, but that's why it doesn't hurt. Give even the emergency vet a call before you bring the dog in and just make sure that that's the right choice. So the last expense, which is often a pretty big one, is boarding. We're lucky that we have a boarding facility that we take our dogs to that they really enjoy, especially Ginny. It doesn't cost any extra to have the dogs be able to play with other dogs, but that's something to keep in mind, especially when you're researching new kennels to take your dog if you need to go on vacation or something like that. Often there's a base fee and then additional fees for things like extra attention, an extra treat, cuddles, playtime with other dogs. And so things can add up really fast, especially when you have multiple pets and you're going to be away for multiple nights. There are also alternatives to having your dogs boarded. You can, ask a trusted neighbor, a family friend, relatives. Really, there are lots of options. There are pet sitting services. We often find ourselves making day trips instead of overnight trips when we're going to visit family or friends so that we don't have to pay extra or we don't have to ask someone to drop in on our dogs. We're probably going to do that a lot more in the next couple years.
You definitely want to limit your trips, I would say, if you're trying to stay on a strict budget because animal care is generally pretty expensive. Sometimes you can find some corners to cut, but really for the most part, it's going to be one of the most expensive parts of your trip. The best thing to do if you're trying to stay on a strict budget is to limit those trips.
If you're in the position where you're trying to adopt a dog, that's also something to keep in mind on the front end because say if we had smaller dogs, it would be a lot easier to either bring them with us or there would be more boarding options available. So that's something to keep in mind if you're at that stage.
Back when we first started this vlogging series, I had told you guys that some of my biggest fears were basically a fear of failure, not being able to live up to this budget's timeline that I had set for us. And part of the reason why I knew that could potentially be an issue is because sometimes there are some unexpected costs that come up that you just don't see coming. We're 22 days into January and we already had one of these happen. We've been living in this house for a little over 2.5 years now. I would say just over a year ago, we had been noticing that the water pressure when using 2 or more appliances would be almost non-existent. More recently, it got to the point where only one thing using water had no water pressure. So we decided to call somebody and have them come out and take a look at our well. It wasn't good. So after we had the people come out to take a look at our well, basically we got hit really hard by Murphy's Law, and that is that everything that could have possibly went wrong. About $4,500 later, we had a well pump replaced, we had some acid treatments done, we had a very difficult filter replaced, just thing after thing after thing. And so now everything is all good. It's all great right now. We have the most glorious water pressure this house has ever seen. That's great, but that really did hurt our plan of getting all this debt paid off in about 2.5 years. We're still committed to that timeline. It's just that now we're gonna have to kind of pick up some more slack to make up for that. All right, so in my haste to share all of this information that I'm really excited to share with you, I totally spaced on explaining our goal for 2020. I just got ahead of myself, so I apologize for that. Our goal for 2020 is to pay off $50,000 on our student loans. That's how we're going to reach our goal in about 2.5 years. We need to pay off $50,000 by the end of 2020. One of the things that I did when I did my budget, which you guys now know how to do to figure out how much money you can pay down per year, I actually found that we were about $4,000 short of $50,000. I realized that through our strict budget and our regular minimum payments, we could end up paying about $46,000. And so I knew we'd have to find about $4,000 to be able to hit that $50,000 goal. But that's how you get aggressive in paying off your debt. You have to have an aggressive goal. One of the things I had done, we kind of had an ace in the hole. We were cheating a little bit. What we had done before we decided that we were just so sick and tired of our student loan debt and we were gonna pay it down as fast as we could. We'd been setting some money aside from bonuses from work, months with a third paycheck, my coaching stipends, all of that had been going into savings, and that money was going to be used for things like home improvement. That amount had just been kind of sitting there and it had built up pretty well, actually. We had some really nice projects that we were going to be able to complete, but we decided that paying off our debt was going to be more important. That was going to be basically a massive student loan payment that came at the end of January. Unfortunately, some of that's now going to have to go towards repairing the well, but it is what it is. We're still committed to hitting that $50,000 goal. We'll give you an update here in just a second.
So if we had not had that amount of money that Nick just talked about, we would have had to pull from our emergency fund. And that just shows how important it is to have that emergency fund in place. It's kind of your lifeline to fall back on. When you're making a very strict budget like we made, you're often not going to have those extra funds available to you. So you need to get that done. That's one of the first baby steps that you need to focus on so that you're safe and prepared for if something goes wrong in the future. This situation also taught us how important it is to do your research, especially as new homeowners, knowing how to take care of your home. We were kind of naive when it came to having a well. We didn't realize how often the filters needed to be changed. How
many filters there were.
Yeah, it's just something that you need to make sure you're aware of, because spending a smaller amount of money to regularly maintain your home and your appliances and everything like that can save you a lot of money when it comes to replacements down the road. It's good for you to know on the front end, or if you're already in a home, to take a look at those sorts of things.
To be fair to us, there was nothing we could have done to prevent the well pump from going bad. It was already on its way out when we purchased the house. It's just something that ended up falling to us instead of one of the previous owners. So it sucks, but that's life for you.
So each month we'll give you an update on how we're moving towards our goal. Gotta say, January totally flew by. Our minimum payments for all three of our loans is $1,550.76, so we'll include that at the top. With our strict monthly budget, we were able to drop an extra $1,040.62. And as we mentioned earlier, we drained our home improvement fund that we'd been contributing to for right around a year. So after pulling that money out for all the well repairs, we were able to slash $4,444.76 off our loan total, which brings our January total up to $7,036.14. Because of the large payment from our home improvement fund, we're already 14% of the way to our yearly goal. The next couple months will show a little bit more modest progress.
All right, so that's it for this February 1st episode, and we'll catch you guys on the 15th.
We'll see you then.
Bye.
Bye. Do you have anything to say for yourselves? Anything to say? You want to say some words? Do you want to not say some words?